Hello, hello, my Ravens Escape Crafties. As you can see, I do not have a new thing on because I am still working on this. I had to frog last night. So welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. If you are just, if you're coming back, welcome back. I appreciate each and every one of you. It is Friday, and I am hoping this weekend I get some work done on some things, and that Monday we will have a fresh start on stuff. It has been a week. It has been a crazy week, and I have just not gotten a lot done as far as crocheting, and that's okay. That is okay if you didn't get much done this week either. Sometimes life happens. So I'm still working on my caplet. I did have to frog back quite a bit. I'm still recovering from the frog. What happened was, for all your crochet, I put some bobbles in. I got a little over anxious and I put a bobble stitch in, and it did not work. It turned into this wavy mess, and it looked terrible. It looked absolutely terrible. So I frogged it all the way back. I had to frog 3 rows plus my bobble row. So now we're back to, it's still got, well, if you've ever crocheted, it has a little bit of a wave at this point, but as I add a couple more rows, it'll balance out. But before, it was like, it just wasn't, it was not going to recover. So I had to pull the bobbles out. I got overly ambitious, which happens. And now I have frog mess because I just yanked, and I should have balled or round or something, and I did not. And now I'm paying the consequences, and that's what happens. I just had a moment, and I just frogged, and now I have knots. But alas, that's okay. So I'm doing, I don't know what's called, a cross double crochet row that right now, where you go forward and then you go backward. I don't know. I think it makes an interesting, like this is this row. You can see it. So I just did 2 rows. Instead of the bobble stitch, I added just a row of double crochet and then 2 rows of single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, just to give it more drape. And now I'm adding a row of the crossed double crochets. I'm not sure if that's how you, basically you, see if I can show you. All right, hold on, let me finish this one. Oh, of course it's not gonna work right now that I want to show you guys. So let me show you. So you go into, you like skip a stitch, like see here would be a stitch. You skip a stitch, do a double crochet, and then you bring your hook back into that other stitch, the one you skipped, and do a double crochet, and then skip a stitch, do a double crochet, and go back and do a double crochet. So that is what I'm working on right now, and I want to try to get this all cleaned up and finished. Let me turn you guys a little bit. See if I can get you back there in the middle better, so I can sit back and relax a little bit, talk to you guys. So as you can see by the window, the sun is actually out briefly, although, don't you worry, we're under a flood watch tonight, so it is not going to last. It is supposed to, we were supposed to have sun this morning, and then it's done. We're supposed to get pouring rain, thunderstorms overnight, and then all day tomorrow, from what I understand. So our next possibility of a bit of sunlight is on Sunday. So don't you worry. Don't you worry. It's just a little bit of sun. We're going to enjoy it while it's here for a few hours, and then she'll go away again, which is fine. You know, it's the weather, and there's not a darn thing we can do about it. It just sucks. It's just all this rain. And it is killing my allergies because I am very sensitive to mold, and when it is damp outside all the time, you know, mold grows obviously naturally, and it kicks my allergies butt, which is why I've been so stuffy, and you can hear my voice, it sounds terrible. It's just not a whole lot I can do about it, you know what I mean? It's like if it would stop raining and dry out a little bit, I'd probably feel a whole lot better. But even my kids have been getting like headaches from this weather all the time. So I get it. It's weird. So today's not going to be a super long video. I don't have a whole lot new to tell you guys. Last night, both of my kids had concerts. So that took up most of the night. And then today I had a little bit of some rough night sleeping. So this morning I fell asleep again, and didn't get a lot done, not nearly as much as I wanted to get done this morning, and it's almost lunchtime already, so that my husband comes home for lunch, so then and then not too long after that the kids come home from school, so it's not going to be a super long video today. What I did think I would explain is something I haven't talked about yet. So my shop name. Let's sit back and relax. Sit back and relax with me, and we'll talk about my shop name. So Raven's Escape Crafts is named after the Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. So this is my favorite poem of all time. Okay, and I'll tell you why. So I think it was like 7th grade, or it may have been, I think it was around 7th grade. We read The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe in school, and it just absolutely blew my mind. I loved, we read a lot of other things, and we got into Edgar Allan Poe, and I'm like, this dude was crazy. This dude was certifiably crazy. Like, his, The Raven itself, to me, was, we had to read it on our own at home, and I was like, wow. Basically, my interpretation of it, and at the time, now it has changed a bit since then, was that the Raven wasn't actually real. Okay, now I've read it many times, and of course matured quite a bit since then, and have slightly different understandings of the poem. But from my 7th grade perspective, I remember this vividly, because this is a fun story. So I was in 7th grade. I think I was 7th grade. Let's just call it 7th grade. And we read this story, this poem, and I was like blown away that, after all of the more contemporary stories we're reading this poem about this guy who is literally like sitting there, and here's a knock on the door, and it's a bird, and that this bird comes in and starts saying nevermore, and sitting on, the pallid bust, and just sits up there for what we can assume is years, and just says nevermore, and makes this guy either. So my interpretation of it was, at the time, I remember this so vividly, is like, this is not real. Like, this guy went crazy, and now he thinks that there's this bird sitting in his house, and it's talking to him. Because the bird doesn't need to leave or eat or do anything, so obviously the bird can't be like a real bird, because it doesn't leave and come back. And the way the poem reads, a fair amount of time elapses from when the bird comes in till the end of the story. So at the end of the poem, so it can't really be a bird, like a real raven, because the bird would need to eat and drink, and it's just sitting on his in his room, you know. So here's the interesting story about this. So it blew me away because, you know, as a kid, it was my first like real introduction into, like, we're reading this. Obviously, this crazy guy wrote this poem. Obviously, this has a lot of like really deep undertones of crazy stuff going on in it. And then of course, you know, if you start reading, of course, it piqued my curiosity into Edgar Allan Poe. And of course, all of his stories are like super like woo, out there. And I'm like, oh, like it was a breath of fresh air that we were celebrating a writer who was not, you know, like Louise May Alcott or something, writing these wholesome, you know, stories, that we were reading something that was like dark and coming from the, I mean, literally coming from the mind of a madman, and we were celebrating it as a classic. And I thought this was amazing, like that it was, you know, we weren't just celebrating normal people, let's put it that way, right? Or like normal people writing about normal things. So I got super into it. I thought this was really cool. And I remember this so vividly. So went to school, we were having a discussion about the Raven with my English teacher. And of course, he was giving us his perspective on what I considered just his perspective on the poem. And I raised my hand and I said, well, no, I don't think that that's right. I said, you know, I read this and I'm like, the Raven can't be real. The Raven is a figment of his imagination. I think he went crazy and now he thinks there's a bird, and like he's manifesting this bird as a part of his personality, something that's bothering him, but it's not real. And my English teacher was like, what do you mean it's not real? The bird is real. Obviously, the bird came in the room and the bird is real. And I'm like, no, it can't be. How can it be real if it's, you know, as of the end of the poem, the bird has been there for quite some time and hasn't moved. I mean, it can't be a real bird, it would be dead. So, and he was like, no, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. You know, da, 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 da. And anybody who knows me, and I know a lot of you don't know me, if I'm wrong, I can admit it. But if I'm not wrong, I will defend it, okay? Almost to a fault. And I remember telling my English teacher, you know, like, no, I understand what you're saying, but like, I disagree. I completely disagree. And you're wrong. You're not interpreting this right, you know? And I have a valid interpretation of this poem. I mean, I'm sure I didn't say it that way. I mean, I was whatever. But I remember saying, like, no, you're wrong. Like, you're wrong. I can look at this poem this way. And he's like, no, you're wrong. You know, I'm an educated, you know, college graduate with a master's degree, and you're just a kid. I mean, you can't argue with me over this fact. And I'm like, okay, I get it. But just because you have a master's degree doesn't mean you can't be wrong. So he did not like that. And I got sent to the principal's office. Oh my God. You know, and I was not the kid that got sent to the principal's office very often. Okay, I was not that kid. I was not, and I was mad. I was mad. Like I said, I mean, it takes a lot to get me mad about something, but like, I just knew I wasn't wrong in this, and I was upset that he wasn't seeing my perspective on this. I could have just sat back and said whatever, and I just, for some reason, I couldn't let it go. And that's kind of my personality. Like, I can let a lot of things I can admit when I'm wrong. But I really felt like, I don't know, this was my hill to die on. Don't ask. I don't know why. But it was. I felt very strongly about this. So here's me. I'm so mad. I'm got sent into the principal's office. So I'm sitting outside the assistant, because of course you don't see the principal, you see the assistant principal. So I'm sitting outside the assistant principal's office. I'm just fuming. And I'm like, if I get in trouble for this, if I get detention or whatever, or after school suspension because I disagreed with my English teacher, like, I am going to fight this tooth and nail. This is crap. So I finally get in to see her. Now, I am nervous because I don't go to the principal's office, and I'm scared that I'm going to get in trouble, and my mom's going to get called, and I'm going to get extra trouble. But, so I sit down and with the assistant principal, and she was fairly new to the position. She had been a teacher previous to that the year before. And she's like, well, what happened? So I told her my side of the story. I explained, and she looks at me, she goes, wait, you got sent down to the principal's office because you disagreed with your English teacher over a poem? And I'm like, yes, he said I was being disrespectful and that he sent me down here to get detention. And she's like, well, did you curse at him? Did you yell at him? And I said, no, I did raise my voice a little bit because I don't feel that he's right. Because I feel like this, was about the Raven. And she's like, wait. He sent you down here because you were this passionate about a poem that you chose to disagree with him over his perspective. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, ugh. You're sure you didn't curse at him? You're sure you didn't, scream at him, yell at him, curse at him? I'm like, no, I'm not. I just defended my view of the Raven. And she's like, okay. She's like, come on. So she gets up and she grabs her keys and all that. She's like, we're going to walk you back to class. So we walked back to class, which usually was not the way it ended up. You just came back to class and you had your punishment. So we walked back in the classroom and my English teacher's like, so, he's like, so she's got detention or after school suspension. And the assistant principal goes, let me ask you a question. Did you really send her down to the principal's office because she disagreed with you on a poem? And he's like, well, she's obviously wrong. She obviously read the poem wrong. And when I told her that, she got very upset about it. And she's like, wait. So you sent her down there because she disagreed with you on poetry? And he's like, well, absolutely. In front of the entire class, she disrespected me. She told me that I was wrong. She told me that, that there isn't just one way to look at this poem, that you can read it other ways. And she's like, well, she's right. She's like, writing and art has always been able to be interpreted different ways, and you're sending her to the principal's office because she was passionate enough when she read this poem to disagree with you in front of the class. And she stood up for herself because she was passionate enough about this poem to defend her view on it. And he's like, well, no, she was disrespectful. And she's like, we would kill to have kids be this invested in as a poem. She's like, is this not the whole point of teaching? Is this not your golden moment to have a student this invested in a poem that she wants to go back and forth with you over said poem? Is this not the golden ultimate of teaching, and as a teacher of English, of literature, how can you say that there's only one perspective ever on a story? He was pissed. I'm gonna be honest, I paid for that the rest of the school year. I mean, he treated me like crap the rest of the school year. But I got mine, and I didn't voice too much from after that, but that is my Raven story. I almost got in trouble, and I love telling that story because I think it's funny, and is still to this day my favorite poem. I read it often, and it's still feel it in my heart every time I do. I just love it. I love that it's a little bit twisted and a little bit messed up, and I feel like I'm a little bit twisted and messed up sometimes. And I think the message that I got from that poem was that, you know, you could say what you want, but the message I got reading that poetry, that this was a classic, that this was a celebrated work of literature, was that it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to be quirky and a little dark and a little twisted, and it's okay to maybe have some mental health problems. Because obviously Edgar Allan Poe had tons of mental health problems. We know that for a fact. So, all right, hold on. All right, sorry about that. My husband came over for lunch, and I had to take a little break. He comes home for lunch every day, and we get to have lunch together, which is really nice. I like him working so close. So, what were we talking about? We were talking about the Raven. So, that is why I call my channel Raven's Escape Crafts, because Raven is my absolute favorite poem. It means a lot to me. It means it is a special place in my life, in my heart, and it speaks to me on a soul deep level. About so many. I could go off on a tangent about it, but you probably don't want to hear that. You're here for yarn and other chit chat. But that is why the Raven, partially why the Raven is one of my favorite poems. It's one of the first pieces of literature that hit me in a way like that. Now there's been thousands of pieces of literature that have hit me since then and made me think about things and changed my life perspectives. But that was the first poem that really, changed my attitude about a lot of stuff. So, and of course, like I said, I was telling you about my teachers and stuff like that. That was hilarious. Like I said, that teacher hated me for the rest of the school year. Hated me for the rest of the school year. And I did not have an easy time in that class. I got graded harshly on everything. He did not care for me. We had another disagreement. You'd think I would have learned my lesson with the Raven. And so I'll just tell you one more funny story about that same class, and then I'll let you guys go and have a great weekend. I appreciate you guys listening to my ramblings. So that same teacher, that same year, we had to read The Scarlet Letter. And again, I ran into some trouble with this teacher. And the problem I ended up running into with the teacher was the fact that if you've read The Scarlet Letter, you know it's about a woman who cheated on her husband and then was forced to wear the A, and was basically turned into a criminal for doing this for, and he, this wouldn't fly today, let me tell you what. But he took the stance with the book that this was a lesson for us. Yeah. Yeah. Today, can you even imagine? I'm serious. But he took the stance that this book was a good read because it was a good lesson for us about how actions can cause to this day that pisses me off. Yeah. And how you have to be careful about your actions. Yeah. And again, I did not disagree with him with the same fervor that I did with the Raven, but I did I think we had to write something very much disagree with his take on the lesson, the value of the lesson in that piece of literature. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah, because I distinctly remember we had to, again, this was a few years ago, just one or two. But I distinctly remember we had to write something about the Scarlet Letter. I believe it was some sort like a book report kind of deal. We had to write about it and like what it was about and what the lessons in it were. And again, he was very much pushing that we should take something away from what happened to her and why. I was so not feeling that. I of course wrote a long-winded, as I tend to do, shocker, book report of the fact of how society can be horrible, and that, just because, I mean, again, it was a long time ago, but I remember I wrote completely opposite of what he was saying, which was like, we should learn a lesson about how sometimes your actions have consequences in this world. And I was like, or how about that sometimes society can be a real jackass? that maybe, they never took the time to understand why she did what she did or her situation, or even give her an ounce of compassion through the entire thing. Instead, they criminalized this poor woman who did not deserve it. And I'm trying not to be too political on this channel, because I know it's a hot button at this point and we all have way too much politics, but there's a lot of things that have been going on in the last few years and not just recently that, make me even more, at this age, my filter is, like when you're a kid, you like, old people are like, we can say whatever we want, and you're like, ooh, you got to be careful with what you say. And I'm 47 now, and I'm starting to get that way. Like, I'm starting to not give a shit what I say. Because I don't care if you like it or not. If I have my opinion, I have my opinion. And again, there's what has been going on with women's rights and things as of the last number of years is very bothersome to me. It just really is. And disgusting. And, I feel like we came so far just to take steps backwards. And, and so I'm reminded of my teacher and the Scarlet Letter. That I know I'm trying to keep this a positive channel, and it is a positive channel, and it is positive that, the one positive thing is that let me say this. Okay, and then I swear to God I'll let you go. But the thing that I really do see coming through all of this stuff going on in the world, the world and politics and stuff, is the fact that, to the counterpoint of the harm that things are being done, to the counterpoint, it has opened up more dialogue about real women's problems. You know what I mean? Like, you never, when we were kids, you knew, like, your mom or your grandma went through the change, and they were just supposed to deal with it. And, you knew, like, I knew my mom was, you had to, she was too, oh dear God. And, and I knew about problems she had with her periods and stuff like that. But, as a society, we didn't really talk about it. We didn't, and even periods and things, menstruation was, that, even though half the population is going to go through it, over half the population, is going to go through it, it's like you're taught from when you're a little, like just starting or even before you started menstruating, like never let anybody know you have your period. It's a super secret thing, I remember like, my mom would be like, when you change your pad in the bathroom, try to be quiet about it because you don't want people knowing you have your period. Like, oh my God, you don't want anybody to know you have your period. Like, screw that. If we didn't bleed, you wouldn't exist. That's all I have to say, So I do love this side of where I'm seeing more and more people talking about menstruation, about women's reproductive problems, about menopause, perimenopause. We're actually recognizing that women go through this crap, and it's miserable. And, there's a lot of problems that go on with that women experience because of their periods. Endometriosis is a huge thing. It takes, we're finally saying the average woman who is having problems with endometriosis, it takes her between 7 and 15 years to find somebody who will actually listen to her, diagnose her, and help her. Which means she's suffering indescribable pain, which now has been proven is part of why, women have more dire consequences when it comes to like heart attacks and things, because we are so used to enduring so much pain. When we get pain, we're just like, oh, I can deal with it, And we're finally having these conversations. And like I said, I know you don't want to hear about all this, but I feel this is something I just feel really strongly about. And you'll probably hear me talk about it again. It's a breath of fresh air. I see a lot of, even like ads and things for, that we're finally acknowledging that like there's periods and period problems and endo and menopause, perimenopause, we're finally talking about it, and that women don't get the medical treatment that they should for it, and that nobody listens to them. It is a breath of fresh air. So I'm going to focus on the positive of that. The negative, we just keep fighting. I mean, there's no other way to do it, we just keep fighting it, and we keep putting the positives out there and putting the more they want to squash it, the more we talk about periods. You know what I mean? Let's talk about the uncomfortable things that they don't want to talk about. Let's talk about endometriosis and fibroids and, the fact that the U.S. has one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world. Let's talk about it. If you guys want to bring this stuff up, let's talk about the real issues. So, I know, that's not what you're here for. You're here for the yarn, and I swear, I hope you have. End of rant. If you're still here, God bless. If you're, I just, like I said, these are things that I feel very, very important about. And, but so happy Friday, happy weekend. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Like I said, I hope you do something really fun, something good for yourself. I hope you just find some love in your heart, no matter what it's for, no matter if it's for the beauty of the day, the flower, your pet, your other humans, Let's just, with all the negativity, we need to spread the love and the positivity and as much as we can. And I appreciate each and every one of you. I see each and every one of you. I love it. I absolutely love that you're here with me, that you're spending time with me. It means so much more than you can ever possibly know. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great weekend, and choose love every day.